Hey YouTube, how you going? This is another video where I thought I'd do a voiceover for a couple of reasons. First of all, I did miss recording part of this video where I was implementing more production grade email service. And then also some of the things that we have to go through after this are a little bit mundane and boring. So just wanted to kind of skip through it and make this video hopefully a little bit more enjoyable. So if you've watched my earlier videos when we were integrating the email service, we were just using NodeMailer in development just to check that it was working. And then what I did was I was using, trying to use this Brevo service here, which basically, transactional email service. Now, one of the challenges that I ran into when using this with AI was Brevo actually have updated the API documentation. So there was two different approaches, and both Claude and ChatGPT were getting very, very confused with that. But then what I decided to do was actually just look at the docs myself. And even in Brevo's own documentation, they constantly went back and forward between referring to the two different versions. And that's from the documentation directly on their website. So I don't know, it seemed to me like maybe they'd moved to this new version fairly recently, and either they've missed updating some of their documentation or they just haven't got around to it yet. But there seems to be some fairly fundamental differences in terms of how you approach it. And I was going round and round in circles and it was quite annoying. So I decided to move on from Brevo, and in a minute, I think it's in this video, or it might have been the bit that got missed off from the recording, we moved to Resend, which was a much easier platform, same functionality in terms of being able to send transactional emails, but basically you just install Resend and the NPM package, and then you plug in your API key, and basically it kind of works straight away. So it was significantly easier to do. We can see here, so I've brought in Resend here. You can see that it refers to my API key, and then after that basically got it working. So we use emails for verifying email, and then also later on, obviously, if people need to forget email, we'll need to do that, as well as MFA functionality as well. So after I did that, what I wanted to move on to was fixing up some other aspects of the application here. So I think we are adding a little bit of functionality for our source type, just to allow it to have rich text fields as well. That was something that I had noticed that we needed. Oh, no, sorry, we're not doing that just yet. We're working on date time. So this was another really annoying bug that we ran into. So with some of the source types, there wasn't only a publication date, but there was like a time variable that you might want to put on those sources. So we did have to add this date time functionality. But then what we also found from doing this was that the calendar widget, so we're using a shadcn component to render the calendar view. And because the calendar was a pop-up, which was in turn popping up off of our modal, basically, as you'll see if we get to that on the front end, it just wouldn't allow us to click, or if it did allow us to click, it would close the whole modal after setting the date and not allow the user to complete the rest of the functionality. So just waiting to hopefully be able to show you that on the front end here. And I think at the moment, though, we've still got a bug with just the date time showing in general. So I also had to go through all of the existing sources, the sources that we seed each account with. So things like YouTube, Reddit posts, blog posts, etc. So we could select that properly. And here you can see that issue. So in this instance, I'm trying to click on the date, nothing's happening. We go round and round in circles with this quite extensively with both Claude and ChatGPT. You can see in that instance it did allow me to select the date, and then I think from memory either it wasn't saving or it allows us to select the date but not the time. So in the end, basically neither ChatGPT nor Claude could figure it out. At one stage they go down a route of trying to basically go real left of field to get it to work. And I think at one point even Claude provides some code that says, I wouldn't really use this because it's quite buggy. The net result is that eventually we do have to build a custom component, which is something I kind of didn't want to have to do, because now that we have that custom component, as I've been using it in test, I've noticed that there are a few edge cases it doesn't support, like being able to quickly change the year. You can only kind of go back and forward. So I do need to come back and fix that up at a later point in time. But yeah, quite frustrating. And an example where both Claude and ChatGPT were no help to me. Even though I was pasting the code from the component itself, going back and forward, trying to even go beyond what I would normally do with working with Claude and ChatGPT, and kind of trying to suggest what some of the challenges I thought were. But yeah, it was to no success, unfortunately. So this is going to go on for a little bit longer. I have sped this up at I think 5x time. You can see here we can select the date, we can select the time. That's I remember. Yeah, you had to click in a specific area as well eventually. So it managed to get it kind of working, but obviously not ideal if someone has to click in a very specific space for it to actually work. And now you can see again I can't click on the time. So probably, to be honest, is one of the most frustrating parts that I've had working on this project. So I was glad to at least find a solution that made it possible to have a calendar and work, but I haven't really figured out from a perspective of using AI, why sometimes it struggles with these components that are supposedly really well documented. And I can't imagine it's too much of an edge case where you want a calendar widget to be made available on a modal, without the click event kind of not working correctly. So if anyone's run into that, or has got any ideas or recommendations on how I could have directed AI a little bit better to get that working, feel free to comment down below. So here's me trying to point out a little bit more, hey, we are using a ShadCN component, what's possibly the issue there. And, as usual, we're going to see those message limits reached. So I think in a second the video is going to cut over and it'll be another day and we'll keep tackling this. Or potentially I move over to ChatGPT, I can't recall now. If you've watched my previous video where I voiceovered, you'll know that this is, I can't remember exactly how long ago this was recorded now. Probably, let me have a look here on the dates. About 3 weeks ago now this was actually recorded, so I am coming back a little bit late to do this. You can see I've changed shirt, so it is a different day. Trying again to prompt it, and you can see even there the UI is still a bit wonky. So I think we get, what are we saying there? It was working for something but not for something else, because there are a few areas where both date and time can be selected. One, if you're creating a source directly, but also if you're creating a source off a note. So again, if you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know that one of the challenges that I always have to balance is that with using AI, if I encapsulate all of the functionality very specifically, down into the set of files that it's related to. So for example, creating a new note, AI typically does work better because you can just feed all of the context and it knows very specifically what it's looking at. But the downside is that if you have these kind of reusable components or reusable functions, for example, being able to select date or date and time, you then have to go and edit and update those in each of the components where that's used. Alright, so in this instance, we were getting it to work with the other approach where instead of there being a modal, but when yeah, I think we get it working that way, and then I'd tell it to like, hey, we still want a modal or we still want some form of pop-up, because it was kind of a bit not ideal, the UI. And I want to make sure the UI is consistent. So again, this is all just from me quickly skimming the notes as I'm typing and trying to make this video a little bit less long than it otherwise would have been. Otherwise you would have been watching me trying to fix this issue for, well, 5 times speed, and this total video is about 25 minutes long. There's a few other things tacked in here other than just the calendar widget, but it was, you know, well over an hour over 2 days just trying to get a silly calendar widget to work. And now you can see doesn't exactly appear to be working, I think. Won't let us click again. One of the other issues when Claude was kind of manually passing the click events through was that in the background you might see every now and then the folders or the tags sidebar also toggles. So that was quite annoying as well. Then it got rid of the save button, I remember that. That was annoying. And then it wouldn't close the modal. Yeah, I remember now as well. If you filled out other inputs first and then filled out the date and time, it then closed the modal. So another little edge case that, yeah, I guess Claude wasn't thinking of when it kind of did its own custom approach. So basically, we go through this for a little bit longer. Maybe if I wasn't doing this voiceover, I could speed it up a little bit more. But there's not too long to go, and then we move on to a little bit more functionality that we need to add into the application. We're going to be covering some logout functionality, and then also updated some functionality as it relates to sources. But that's just a couple of minutes tacked on to the end here. I'm trying to remember what was happening here. It was something to do with the editing for the date and time picker. I can't remember exactly what's this validate source field. So I think, yeah, maybe on the back end we hadn't allowed for date time on the edit functionality, so I had to fix that up as well. And then we still need to invalidate queries when editing, so that the front end UI updated as well. But we do cover that in a later video, I believe we should have anyway. We are getting closer to being able to launch. So if you are watching this, the app did launch yesterday, being 13th of March. So these videos are a bit late and behind behind time, real time, because yeah, it does take a little bit of effort just to quickly edit these and get them up, and yeah, it kind of slacked off in doing that. So apologies if anyone had been waiting for any new videos. I mean, I know it does get decent views, but a lot of people kind of just watch the first few minutes. So I do have something interesting coming on that very shortly to talk about how we're going to change the channel, but I did want to get this project out the door and in line with what I'd shared originally when doing it, which was that I would be documenting the entire process. So I think we have moved on now to just invalidating, yeah, if I remember correctly, so it was passing the data through, but then just on the front end it wasn't invalidating the queries for editing the note or the source, so that yeah, it didn't automatically or immediately update on the front end without a refresh. So you can see that there on the note card itself, sorry, this source card, the date wasn't changing, although it was changing in the database. So we're just going to be finalizing this in the next probably 30 seconds to a minute or so, and then moving on to some other functionality, which I'll continue to talk over, just to be able to kind of track and continue, as I said, the journey of documenting this entire process, which has been quite interesting. What are we running into? Some other error at the moment. Okay, looks like we have fixed that up potentially, because I'm shuffling some of these notes, as I said, recorded this a little while ago, so memory is a little bit rough, and now we're moving on to some logout functionality. A little bit surprising, I didn't create any logout functionality. So what we're doing here is setting up the backend for that. I used my normal approach, or my normal prompt that I give Claude. It's actually very good. It creates backend code pretty much without any issues. Out of everything I've done with AI, certainly writing backend code is the easiest for AI to get right, especially for anything that's fairly standard. So, you know, create, read, update, delete type requests that have some form of logical, straightforward flow, don't have a lot of edge cases, or need to interact with a lot of other third-party services. You know, as you start adding additional third-party kind of services that it needs, well, not third-party, but like third-party, third-party is probably the wrong word, like additional middleware or additional utils, for example, like calling emails, email service to send reminders, having, you know, a lot of extensive functionality in middleware or global utility files. It does get a little bit more confused. But if you're just telling it, hey, I want you to create, you know, a GET request, structure it in this way with a route, a controller, a service, and then I use a kind of functional utils folder, it does a pretty good job off the bat. What I did run into doing this from memory is, yeah, there was some issue where the refresh token was not being cleared correctly, and basically, if you've watched some of my earlier videos, you'll know that the original project of this, I just started writing the back end, and I kind of created it as a submodule. So you can see that there on the left-hand side, auth backend. That's a submodule within my main project. Now, I've since decided that it's probably best not to have that submodule approach, because it's just like an extra layer of abstraction that AI does sometimes struggle with. Because originally I had like registration routes, login routes in that submodule, and then you end up overriding at least some of them in the kind of parent folder, parent directory of the new project. And that really messes with routes, because you essentially end up having two index.js files. Sometimes you're leveraging the routes from the submodule, sometimes you're leveraging it from your parent project. And yeah, basically whenever you're doing that and there's multiple answers, or not even answers because it's not, there's only ever one answer, but multiple areas where Claude could look, or Claude could kind of go to try and work out what to do, it just gets confused. So yeah, we can see we've got some error here reading the refresh token. So I'm just trying to check that we're actually if there is the refresh token saved on the cookie. I think I go into the console within the browser soon, and it is there. It just wasn't kind of clearing it, and then there ended up, I believe, being an issue with the cookie version. So I think from memory we can't remember if that was with the bearer token or the refresh token. Each token has a version, so if you it kind of gets incremented, or each time there's a new token created, and I think that was also causing part of the issue from memory. Again, this was filmed three or 4 weeks ago, so I've forgotten exactly what the problem is. Either that, or from memory it wasn't matching the refresh token. I can't remember now. Alright, so we did end up logging out successfully there. So yeah, sorry, it wasn't the version, that was for some other functionality. That was another bug. I think I covered that in a video coming up. And now what I'm doing is just telling Claude, obviously, to create the functionality required for the front end. So we need a hook to be able to call out API endpoint. So we update our endpoint.js file. Then we're going to need a button, and I'm just going to stick it on the settings page just to keep things nice and easy and not have to worry too much about the look, feel, and styling. By this stage of the project, I was very keen just to kind of get it out the door. And although this was filmed, kind of 3 weeks ago, after this I did have a little bit of had a little bit of time off where I couldn't work on it as much as I really hoped to. Then I work on the public-facing website, which took around, a week, maybe a little bit longer, and then just deploying to production. And then when I was deploying to production, I was setting environment variables and setting up Stripe accounts and stuff like that. So not necessarily writing any more code, but there's some hoops to jump through when you're trying to set the environment variables right in render, making sure that the build goes correctly, and then with Stripe, making sure you fill out all their details, wait for them to approve your account. Set up the projects again in Stripe. So I didn't re-record, projects, setting up products. I didn't re-record setting up products in Stripe because we've already seen that on the development environment, but yeah, you need to then do it obviously in your production account. So that was all the same. And now I'm just kind of moving some tasks around here, some that I felt that I needed to fix before being ready to deploy, and then some that are kind of like future updates. So yeah. Thanks for watching this one. I don't imagine too many people have stuck around the whole way, but if you have, I really do appreciate it. And actually, this is the final update I was going to make on this. There was some issue with viewing sources or viewing notes associated with sources. I can't remember now. So this is just me fixing up one more thing so that actually, I think this was, if you viewed a related note on the source card, you could then click it and open that note. It wasn't previously working. So I was just fixing up that, and that was kind of like the last big milestone of functionality I think that we really needed to do to have what I would say, is a fully functional app, albeit with, an MVP style of functionality, and there's still probably some edge cases and bugs that exist that I'll stumble on as I start using it. But yeah, we'll wrap it there. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.